This episode of FineScale Modeler's new product rundown features HobbyBoss's French R35, Trumpeter's Westland Whirlwind, Tamiya's USS Saratoga, Dragon's Black Label MBT-70, and Revell Germany's Boeing 747-8F.
Hi, and welcome to FineScale Modeler's new product rundown. I'm Aaron Skinner.
And I'm Tim Kidwell. Let's start today's show with HobbyBoss's most recent armor kit, the Renault R35, where R35 stands for Char Léger Modèle 1935R.
Designed in the mid-1930s as an infantry tank, the R35 was well armored but slow, and armed with a relatively
Puny,
ineffective 37mm gun. It was outmatched by German armor during the Battle of France in 1940.
The French fielded about 1,000 of the R35s, making it one of the most important French tanks, but it's been largely ignored by model manufacturers.
Yeah, until now, the only 1/35th scale mainstream kit of this vehicle was from Heller, and that was released in the late 1970s. This one looks set to blow that one out of the water.
So, the kit itself is molded in tan plastic. The parts feature sharp detail, especially around panel lines.
And speaking of detail, there's a lot here. The R35 features a complete engine with transmission, fan, exhaust, and a host of smaller parts.
The transmission extends through an equally well-detailed fighting compartment. There's a driver's seat, controls and linkages, and stowage racks.
The driver's hatch and transmission cover can be posed open, but the engine will be difficult to see without modifying the deck.
The turret features a cannon with detailed breech and turned metal barrel. The commander's hatch has detail inside and is movable.
Neatly molded Lincoln length tracks wrap around the complex running gear and suspension. Optional parts provide for open or closed idlers.
Photo-etched metal must be bent to form parts of the bogies. There's more photo-etched metal for the interior, seat, latches, hinges, and other items.
Decals provide markings for a French tank in two-color camouflage and a captured tank in German service painted overall dark gray.
Overall, this is a nice-looking kit of an interesting and underserved vehicle. HobbyBoss has already kitted a German self-propelled gun that's based off of this same chassis.
Yeah, and perhaps we'll see an R40 in the future.
Next up is a 1/48 scale Westland Whirlwind from Trumpeter.
I've always liked the Whirlwind. This is one of those airplanes that looks like it's going 500 miles an hour just sitting on the ground.
Originally designed in the mid-1930s for the Royal Air Force as a heavy fighter, the twin-engined Whirlwind was packing 4 20mm nose cannon.
Whirlwinds carried out anti-shipping strikes as well as escort and ground attack missions for the RAF until being retired in late 1943.
Now, we've seen a lot of 1/72nd scale Whirlwinds in the past. This, however, is the second 1/48 scale injection molded Whirlwind. Classic Airframes did one in the 1990s.
This relatively simple kit comes on 4 sprues of Trumpeter's typical gray plastic. Surface detail on the major airframe components is fine engraved panel lines and recessed rivets.
There's a basic cockpit including a floor, seat, controls, walls, and instrument panel. A decal provides instrument faces, but the printing doesn't correspond to the molded detail.
The main and tail wheel wells have internal detail. The doors for the latter are molded with the fuselage halves in the open position, so you'll need to do some work to display it in flight.
There's no engine detail, so this build shouldn't take long straight from the box.
If you want a quick fix to make it better, deepen the panel line above the horizontal stabilizer. It is the upper half of the rudder, as you can see in the box art.
Decals provide markings for 2 RAF Whirlwinds, one in early dark earth and dark green camouflage, the other in later ocean gray and dark green.
The registration is off on the yellow on the decals in our review kit, but it shouldn't be hard to find replacement markings.
It's great to see subjects like the Whirlwind in 1/48 scale.
Our third kit is Tamiya's 1/700th scale USS Saratoga.
Now, CV-3 started life as a heavy cruiser, but the Washington Treaty saw it converted into an aircraft carrier.
Sister Sarah, as she was known, took part in operations against Guadalcanal in 1942, Rabaul in 1943, Surabaya in 1944, and ultimately Iwo Jima in 1945.
In July of 1946, the Saratoga was used as a target in nuclear bomb tests off of Bikini Atoll.
It's been a while since Tamiya released an all-new 1/700th scale waterline ship, and the Saratoga looks great in the box.
Well-molded dark gray parts fill the box. The long hull halves have recessed portholes and raised weld seams.
The flight deck features engraved planks and elevators and raised arrestor wires. The kit represents Saratoga as a night fighter carrier and includes the catapults added during its 1944 refit.
The rest of the molding exhibits the quality we expect from Tamiya, with tiny gun barrels, fine rails, and crisp detail. There is a metal bar to give the ship some weight.
If there's one negative, it's that only 8 aircraft, 4 Hellcats and 4 Avengers, are included. They're very nicely molded and include panel lines and wing-mounted radar fairings used on night fighters.
A color painting diagram shows the carrier in the late war Measure 21 scheme with navy blue 5N vertical surfaces and deck blue stained wooden flight deck.
Decals provide all flight deck markings as well as national insignia for the planes.
Tamiya has given us a very nice model of a very important warship.
Next up, a long-awaited kit of one of the great tanks that never quite was, the MBT-70.
Designed as a joint project between the US and West Germany, the MBT-70, or the KPZ-70 in German nomenclature, was a true main battle tank to replace the M60 and Leopard 1.
Unfortunately, the project went over budget, Germany pulled out, and then the US canceled it with just 14 prototypes built.
Many of the tank's advances, however, were incorporated into the Abrams M1 and the Leopard 2 MBTs. Part of Dragon's black label catalog, the kit is molded in typical gray styrene.
Based on a surviving prototype at the Deutsches Panzer Museum, it represents the KPZ-70 more than the American MBT-70. The shape of the rear hull is the major difference.
Mold quality is good with casting texture on the turret. This is a large vehicle, but the kit keeps the parts count to a minimum. The slide molded armament looks terrific.
Turret hatches can be posed open or closed, but there's no interior. The suspension is keyed for alignment, but the instructions show easy modifications to articulate it.
Dragon styrene tracks provide the traction. No photo etch metal is provided in this smart kit release, but the kit could really benefit from some for the engine grills.
A small decal sheet provides generic markings for 2 West German tanks, including insignia, bridging placards, and serial numbers.
A 4-page colored leaflet has photos of the Panzer Museum's KPZ-70 for reference.
This kit looks like a great starting point to model this important step in the evolution of modern armor.
Lastly, let's take a look at Revell Germany's 1/144th scale Boeing 747-8F.
This is the freighter version of the latest incarnation of the Jumbo, and it's proven very popular with carriers, with orders outstripping those for the passenger variant.
Now, Revell Germany released the passenger version last year, and there's a lot of crossover between the two kits.
The new parts are the fuselage halves without the long upper deck and few window openings. The panel lines, doors, and vents are sharply molded.
The remaining parts exhibit the same quality, especially the wings and stabilizers. Cockpit detail is included, and the landing gear is scale thin and looks terrific. There's even brake detail.
Especially like the engines, the fans have open blades and the intake rings are single pieces, eliminating awkward sanding. Individual blade antennas and pitot tubes finish the fuselage.
A beautiful decal sheet provides markings for a Luxembourg-based carrier, Cargolux, with registrations and names for 6 aircraft.
This is a beautiful kit of this big airplane, and I'm going to probably add it to my collection if I can find room for the big 20-inch fuselage.
Good luck.
Yeah, thanks.
Anyway, look for reviews of the R35, the Saratoga, the MBT-70, and the Whirlwind in an upcoming issue of FineScale Modeler magazine.
And you can find more of these and other new products in the July issue on sale now.
Thanks for visiting FineScale.com. I'm Tim Kidwell.
And I'm Aaron Skinner.
We'll see you next time.
Not if I see you first.
Two.
Dude, you're up.
Oh, shnikes.
He counts himself in and then...
Let's stand here.